Growing up, I often felt invisible. My parents were always wrapped up in their careers, too busy to notice much of anything. Books became my escape, my safe haven from the emptiness that shadowed my childhood and followed me into my teenage years. I longed for connection, for someone who could fill the void I felt every day. That all changed when I met Lily Parker back in middle school. She lit up my world, and before long, our friendship blossomed into a relationship that lasted through high school, college, and finally led to marriage. I knew right away that I wanted her in my life forever, even if my parents had their doubts. We were close but still maintained our independence. Yet, the time we spent together was always the best part of my day. She was my confidant, my partner, my everything, and that's why I married her. Lily and I couldn't have been more different. She was the life of the party, while I preferred quiet nights with a good book. She thrived on the soccer field, while I was more comfortable in the library. But despite these differences, there was something real between us that kept us connected. We never felt like we had to force our relationship. It was built on sharing dreams, fears, and everything in between. I wasn't sure if I believed in soulmates, but if they were real, she was mine. When I asked her dad, Mr. Parker, for permission to marry her, he grilled me about everything, making sure my intentions were genuine. I proved my commitment by choosing to love her through thick and thin. Sadly, the thin came much sooner than I'd ever expected, just 3 years into our marriage. I still loved her deeply and wanted nothing but her happiness, even if it meant letting her go. Lately, Lily had grown distant. She would come home late from work, and the smile that used to greet me at the door had faded away. Realizing that the person you love doesn't feel the same anymore is like a knife to the heart. One evening, she walked into the dining room, her face a mixture of sadness and determination. "Hey, Lily," I said softly. "You okay?" "Not really," she replied. "Can we sit down? I need to talk to you." I had prepared for this moment, knowing I would have to make the toughest decision of my life. To let her go. "Lily, I love you and always will," I began. "I don't want to fight or point fingers. I just want us to decide what's best together. Is that okay?" "Of course, Sam," she said, her eyes filled with anxiety, giving her away. "I've always wanted you to be happy," I continued. "But I know you haven't been happy with me for a while." Tears welled up in her eyes, and oddly, I felt a small sense of comfort knowing she was hurting too. "I don't want to dig into the details. That would only make it worse. But if we can agree you're unhappy, that would mean a lot," I said. She whispered, "Yes, Sam. I know. Thank you for being honest," I said, relieved but heavy-hearted. "I want a divorce." Her father, Jack Parker, was a man I admired a lot. He and his wife, Linda, raised 6 kids in a cramped apartment in a rough part of the city. He was a tough man, but it was his devotion to his family that earned my respect. I felt like I owed him an explanation, so I sat with him on his porch, sharing a few beers, and finally laid it all out. "Sam, why are you here?" He asked, suspicion in his eyes. "This is harder than I thought, sir," I confessed. "I've loved your daughter since the moment I met her, and I promised you I'd always put her first. That's what I'm doing now, even though it means I'm leaving Lily." As expected, he was angry, slipping into a mix of English and his native tongue, demanding answers I couldn't fully provide. "Sir, I love your daughter, but there are some things that need to stay private. It's painful to admit that our marriage is over, but I think it's for the best. I wanted you to hear it from me." Eventually, he calmed down enough to let me share a bit more. Though he was upset and felt ashamed, he allowed me to leave without any further confrontation. Lily didn't cry or argue with me, and while that brought a strange relief, a part of me had hoped she would beg me to stay. But she didn't, and that only confirmed that my decision was the right one. Her only reaction came when I told her I'd spoken to her dad. "I talked to your dad today and explained what I'm about to tell you," I said. "I hope we can part ways without dragging this out. I don't want financial ruin on top of everything else. I prepared the paperwork for dividing our assets, especially the house. Please look them over and let me know by next week." "Okay, Sam. I'll look them over," she replied. I can already hear people judging me. Why didn't I fight harder for her? Why didn't I confront her first? The truth is, I don't have it in me. The last time I got into a fight was in high school, and it was because someone made Lily cry. I nearly got expelled, But Jack Parker stepped in to keep things from getting worse. The other reason was for my own sanity. I was a mess, barely sleeping, nearly getting fired from my job. I had no one to lean on. My mom had died of cancer while I was in college, and my dad, who became a heavy drinker, moved to Arizona and cut off all contact. I needed a clean slate, and for that to happen, Lily had to agree to the divorce. I was only 28 and had to rebuild my life. Revenge wasn't even on my mind. 2 weeks later, we sat down at the attorney's office. Lily agreed to give up the house, which we planned to sell. We split our bank accounts. She kept the new car, while I held on to my old pickup truck. Everything was settled, except for the 90-day waiting period. The only thing I regretted was not being fully honest with her. "Where are you going to live, Sam?" she asked. "I rented a small place near my office." I lied. "I'll stay there until I figure things out." "All right. I guess I'll see you at the house closing," she said. "Definitely. See you then, Lily." In reality, I had no plans to stay around. My truck was packed, and I left my wedding ring on the kitchen table with a note that read, "Goodbye. I will always love you. Be happy." Before leaving town, I said my final goodbye to Jack Parker. "Jack, you and Lily belong together," he said. "Can't there be forgiveness? Remember your vows." "Yes, but it's too soon, sir. I've forgiven her in my heart. I still love your daughter, but I need to find peace," I said. Linda Parker hugged me at the door. "God bless you, Sam. I'll miss you," she whispered. I left quickly, not wanting to break down in front of them. When your partner is unhappy, it's helpful to know the reasons why, but I had no answers. We hadn't even fought recently. I just thought she was stressed from work. I had hoped things would get better, but sometimes hope isn't enough. I tried harder than ever to fix things around the house. I cooked, did the dishes, and even tackled the laundry, hoping she'd notice and things would change. After a few weeks, I even scrubbed the bathroom, something I usually avoided like the plague. If I hadn't decided to clean that day, I might not have discovered what I did. While emptying the trash, I found a pregnancy test hidden beneath some tissues. Digging deeper, I found a second test, positive. I checked Lily's birth control pills. They hadn't been touched for weeks. That's when it hit me like a ton of bricks. My wife was pregnant, and the baby wasn't mine. But who was it? It didn't take long to figure out. I called Lily, intending to confront her, but my call was redirected to the office front desk, where they told me she had already left for the day. Her car was still in the parking lot, so I drove to her workplace, about 15 minutes away. My mind raced with possibilities. Had she been in an accident? 30 minutes later, I got my answer. Her boss, Jason Mitchell, pulled up next to her car, and without a care in the world, they kissed right there in the open. The smile that used to belong to me was now meant for someone else. That was all I needed to see. I drove back home ahead of her and kept my emotions in check. That evening, she barely looked at me. In just a few hours, I knew my marriage was finished. By the next morning, I'd made up my mind. I needed to get away, far away. I realized that a 30-hour drive to Seattle might be my best bet. I took off the next day, driving through Kansas, Wyoming, and Idaho. The wide-open plains and towering mountains slowed me down, and I wasn't sure my old truck could handle the climb. On the fourth day, I checked into a cheap motel, slept for nearly 20 hours straight, and spent the following day applying for student housing. Less than a week ago, I was a freshly divorced 28-year-old with no real family to speak of. Now, I was starting over as a first-year law student, living in a dorm room, and trying to build a new life from scratch. I wish I could say that after college, I had exciting adventures, but that wasn't the case. I had zero experience dating. It was always Sam and Lily, and I never learned how to be on my own. Through law school, I didn't go on a single date or make any close friends. If anyone showed interest, I completely missed it. Instead, I threw myself into my studies, using them as a way to escape the loneliness. 4 years of grinding away for a Juris Doctor and an MBA, aiming for that perfect GPA. Lily and I once talked about going back to school once we were better off financially. So, when it was time for me to move on, I took the LSAT, applied to schools, and ended up at a law school in Seattle on a full scholarship. I didn't know much about the school or the city, except that it was far away from the memories I needed to leave behind. Once a month, I'd write letters to Mr. and Mrs. Parker, telling them about my classes and new life. It was something I picked up from my own parents, maybe out of routine or maybe just to feel like someone out there still cared about me. About 3 months into my first semester, I received a package that confirmed the real value of a broken heart. They never pried for details. Instead, they'd send updates about their other kids, but never about Lily. It let me imagine, just for a moment, that I still had a family that cared. For the first half of that year, I kept in touch with them. They never outright mentioned forgiveness or getting back together, but subtly hinted at it. Then one day, the hint stopped altogether. I never doubted that Lily would keep her baby, but I often wondered if she would come clean to her parents before it became obvious. And I wondered if Jason Mitchell would leave his wife and 3 kids to make things right with Lily. I didn't have the courage to ask, but I knew a baby born to a man like him wouldn't look anything like me. It felt like a cowardly move, but I sent a congratulatory gift basket, complete with flowers and balloons, to Jason Mitchell's home, celebrating the arrival of their new baby. I sent a duplicate to Lily's office, addressed to the company president. I had promised myself I wouldn't stoop to hurting anyone, not even Jason Mitchell, but the bitterness was too much. I didn't spread rumors or make accusations, just sent my congratulations. And strangely enough, I was genuinely happy for Lily, knowing she was on her way to her dream of having a big family. But I couldn't ignore that her joy came from my suffering. I don't know what happened after my little gesture, but I imagined a blow-up at Jason's home. Maybe it didn't happen, but that small, petty act allowed me to close the door on that chapter of my life. I was still hurting, but it was finally over. For years after the divorce, my social life was practically non-existent. My first real friend was a co-worker nearly 20 years my senior. I joined a small law firm that specialized in real estate and soon realized I had a knack for contracts and negotiation. "Sam, people need to trust you to solve their problems," said Henry Jacobs, the senior partner at the firm. "They hand you the keys to their dreams, and you have to deliver. You've got a gift, and I'm going to help you use it." Henry became more than just my boss. He was my mentor and life coach. A legend in the world of real estate law, known for sealing multi-million-dollar deals, he made me his personal project. 90 days into my career, he sat me down for my first evaluation. "Sam, you're diligent and sharp. You do excellent work," he said. "Thank you, Mr. Jacobs," I replied. "But as a person, you're completely disconnected. Are you 30 or 90? Let's take a walk." And that's how our weekly Sam sessions started. Henry was a genius. He'd ask questions, get me talking, and share his own life stories. I opened up about everything: my past, my parents' law school, and of course, Lily. "We've got a lot of work to do, but we've also got a lot to work with. Now let's get back to the office," he'd say. I couldn't quite grasp his motives at first, but after 3 years, the results were undeniable. Henry's subtle guidance helped me grow in ways I hadn't imagined. I started hitting the gym, learned to cook, made smarter investments, and even began buying up small properties. Without his influence, I might have settled for a decent, middle-class life. But with Henry's nudges, I became a confident, successful entrepreneur. Whenever I tried to thank him, he would just wave it off. "Watching you thrive is thanks enough," he'd say. I worked alongside Henry Jacobs for nearly 5 years, and after helping me succeed in business, he turned his focus to my personal life. One day, he casually asked, "Sam, what are you getting your parents for their anniversary?" I was taken aback, a bit confused. Both of my parents had passed away years ago, and he knew that. "Come on, Sam. Next month, Jack and Linda Parker will be celebrating 50 years of marriage. Only a fool would let an occasion like that go by without a proper gift." He was right. The Parkers had become like parents to me, always staying in touch over the years. So for their 50th anniversary, I decided to go all out. I sent them first-class airfare, booked a 5-star hotel suite, arranged for a limo service, and reserved fine dining experiences, along with VIP tickets to a top show in Seattle. I included a note: "Happy anniversary. Enjoy this however you like. Love, Sam." I didn't expect anything in return, which is why I was surprised when my phone rang around noon the next day. "Hello, this is Sam Morgan," I answered. "Oh, Sammy, what a wonderful surprise." "But this is way too much," Mrs. Parker exclaimed. "Mrs. Parker, It's so nice to hear from you. But you and Mr. Parker deserve this. I'm honored to give it to you, I said warmly. Oh, Sam, you've always been such a sweet boy. Hold on a moment. Jack wants to talk, she said, handing the phone to her husband. Sam, Mr. Parker began. Yes, sir, I replied, bracing myself. Sam, this is too much. I can't let you go to such trouble. I don't even want to imagine what this cost, he continued, his words tumbling out quickly. Mr. Parker, Jack, Dad, I interrupted gently. Yes, Sam, he replied, finally pausing. This gift doesn't come close to repaying all the kindness you've shown me over the years. It makes me happy to give it to you. Please accept it in the spirit it was meant, I said sincerely. There was a brief silence. Then he responded, All right, son. We accept. Wonderful. Happy anniversary, I said, feeling a wave of relief. The conversation then turned to the trip details, and I explained all the highlights I thought they'd enjoy. After exchanging more words of love and gratitude, we hung up, and for the first time in nearly a decade, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. As I reflected on that, I noticed Henry standing in my doorway with a big grin on his face. Ungrateful kids, he teased. Shut up, old man, I shot back, smiling. The Parkers' vacation didn't go exactly as I'd planned. I assumed they'd use the gift to enjoy some sightseeing, fine dining, and relaxation. And they did, but they insisted I tag along for every part of it. It became clear that they hadn't even been in their hotel room for 5 minutes before my phone rang. Hello, this is Sam Morgan, I answered again. Sammy, when are you coming to see us? Mrs. Parker asked eagerly. Hello, Mrs. Parker. How was your flight? I asked, trying to buy myself a moment to think. Good. Jack says we need to rest for a bit, but then we're ready to explore. Will you be here? She pressed. I could be there in about an hour, I replied, realizing I'd have to rearrange my entire day. Great, Sam. See you soon, she said cheerfully before hanging up. To be honest, I hadn't planned on spending a lot of time with the Parkers during their trip. They had plenty to do, and I had a mountain of work on my desk. I was still trying to figure out how to juggle my schedule when Henry walked into my office with a couple of folders. Sam, I've given you some time off. You need a break. Now get out of here and don't come back for a week, or you're fired, Henry ordered, leaving no room for negotiation. His assistant quickly packed up my work and cleared my desk. Sam, go spend time with your parents. I'll handle everything else, Henry said, his tone firm but caring. So I did. The Parkers insisted on visiting my office, and Henry, who rarely joked about work, seemed ready for us. When we arrived, he gave the Parkers a personal tour, proudly introducing them as my parents. In the conference room, he spent nearly an hour talking about my accomplishments and treating them like VIPs. It was touching to see the Parkers so full of pride, especially Linda, who kept patting my hand every time someone praised me. We're so proud of you, Sammy, she said softly. The rest of the week followed a similar pattern. Henry's influence was evident wherever we went. I had chosen the limo, the hotels, the restaurants, and the shows based on my business connections, but Henry made sure we were treated like royalty. We were greeted by owners and managers who shared stories of how I'd helped them and offered us the best tables, the finest wines, and top-notch service. It was impressive. Mr. and Mrs. Parker, I have to admit, this week has been more eventful than I expected. I know these people, but I've never been given this kind of treatment before. My day-to-day life is a lot simpler, I confessed. Sam, it's wonderful to see how many friends you've made who wanted to show us just how special you are. We always knew you were special and have always been proud to say that, Linda started to say, but her voice broke with emotion. So, Jack stepped in. My son, you are who you are, and that's something special. When you took those vows before God, you became part of our family, and you've lived up to that promise in every way. You've been a constant presence in our lives since you were just a boy, and it's been our honor to watch you grow into the incredible man you are today. A father couldn't ask for more. Sam, we love you, and we're so proud of you, Jack Parker said, his voice filled with emotion. Jack Parker had aged, but he was still as strong as ever. His hug was so powerful. I thought he might crack one of my ribs, and moments later, Linda joined in, wrapping me in a family embrace that filled me with a sense of belonging I hadn't felt in years. Their visit flew by, and I was sad to see them go, but I promised to visit them soon after I finished handling some business. Henry, as usual, knew exactly what I needed. I returned to work feeling energized, and when I shared my next big idea with him, he just smiled and gave me the go-ahead. The project I had in mind was small and wouldn't bring in much long-term revenue, but it was probably the most meaningful work I'd ever do. In just 6 weeks, I managed to finalize almost all the title deeds, secure a buyer with full financing, and make a few key phone calls. Armed with new information, I booked a flight back to my hometown for the first time in nearly a decade. At the airport, I grabbed a coffee from a kiosk where 2 women, Claire and Emily, were working. I overheard them talking about their broken appliances and how their landlord wasn't responding to their complaints. When Claire handed me my coffee, I gave her my card with a quick note. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. I think I can help. Call this number and ask for Nate. Tell him Sam sent you, and that you need Mark's assistance. He'll take care of it from there. If you're looking for a new place, Nate can help with that too." I've written it all down on the back. As my flight was called, I added, "Don't worry about the cost. Just use the number. Good luck." Why did I offer to help them? Simple. I've seen my share of bad landlords in real estate, and Henry taught me that real estate should be about making things better for everyone involved. A few calls, a letter, and some help from a paralegal could get these women out of a tough spot. We did pro bono work occasionally, and this was no different. I sent Nate a quick email, so he wouldn't be surprised when they called. The flight to Denver was short, and once I landed, I picked up my rental car and luggage, then took a drive around the city. Not much had changed, but it no longer felt like home. I passed through the Parkers' neighborhood, where most of the houses were falling apart, except for theirs. It was clear the area had been neglected for years. My destination was a new condominium complex, one with upscale condos above retail spaces that included restaurants, a theater, and various shops, including a grocery store. The design was unique for the area, and everything seemed to fit perfectly. The apartment I had was brand new, with 2 bedrooms, a spacious open living area, a study, and a large balcony overlooking a beautifully landscaped park. The master suite felt like a spa, complete with a jetted tub and a large, tiled shower. The place was furnished with top-of-the-line fixtures and appliances, just a few personal touches, and it would feel like home. The Parkers met me for dinner at one of the restaurants on the ground floor, arriving right on time and dressed for a night out. We had a wonderful meal filled with laughter, and I hoped the rest of the evening would be just as memorable. Jack and Linda Parker, both 67, had been married for 50 years. They were still full of life, but showed signs of the hard work that had defined their lives. During our time in Seattle, I learned that they were ready to retire, but were anxious about their financial situation and living in a neighborhood plagued by crime and abandoned homes. My goal was to change that, as Henry had reminded me. This is what kids do for their parents. After dinner, I invited the Parkers back to the condo for a late-night celebration. As we stepped into the elevator, they looked around, surprised. "I didn't realize this was a hotel, Sam. These rooms must be expensive," Linda said, her voice filled with concern. "Yeah, we need to talk about that," I replied, smiling as the elevator doors opened to reveal the apartment. When I opened the door to the condo, they were visibly impressed. I had asked their 7 children to describe their parents' dream home, and I made sure to include all of their preferences. Their attention then shifted to the bottle of champagne sitting on the kitchen counter. "Are we celebrating something?" Jack asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes, I hope so," I said, popping the cork. "To your retirement and new home," I added, raising my glass and gesturing around the room. "Oh my goodness, Sam, this is too much. We can't accept this," Linda said, shaking her head. "It's not a gift," I reassured them, "but you'll have more than enough to buy it. Please sit down and let's talk it over." They were hesitant, but as the conversation went on, they began to warm up to the idea. "When we sign these documents, we'll form the Parker Investment Group," I explained. "First, we'll purchase 19 properties near your current home. Then, we'll rezone the area and sell the entire package to urban development partners who plan to build a hotel and retail complex next to the new arena. We'll receive the sale proceeds within 90 days. I showed them the highlighted dollar amount on the papers, and they were stunned. This apartment is rented for the next 3 months with an option to buy. Here's the cost breakdown, I said, handing them another document. Half of the remaining profits will be used to fund a lifetime annuity for both of you, with monthly dividends. I handed them the final document and said, "You'll be able to retire comfortably in this new place. I'm just here to provide some guidance and cover the legal fees." They wouldn't be rolling in money, but they'd be secure, free from financial worries. It was a lifeline they hadn't expected. "Sam, how did you pull this off so quickly?" Jack asked, still processing the news. "Acquiring the property next to yours took some maneuvering," I explained. "But Henry Jacobs found a buyer through his network. A new entertainment complex is being planned just across the border, so we used that to negotiate a higher price. The zoning changes are already in motion, thanks to our contacts on the city council. The rest was just smart investing." Linda's eyes filled with tears, though she was smiling. Jack shook his head in disbelief. "It's more than we ever imagined, Sam. It's almost like a dream," he said, his voice unsteady. Then, out of nowhere, I heard a voice I hadn't heard in over a decade. "Sam, this is unbelievable," Lily said, her voice filled with genuine surprise. "Nobody deserves it more than you two," I replied, offering a sincere smile. I hadn't seen or heard from Lily in 10 years. Her parents and siblings never brought her up, and she had become a distant memory. But when I saw her standing there, it felt like waking up from a long, forgotten dream. I once loved her with all my heart, but now those feelings were gone. Our meeting was pure coincidence. I was picking up a few things for an upcoming trip, and the new shopping center had one of my favorite stores. While browsing, I heard a voice behind me. "You've always had great taste," Lily said, her voice a blend of nostalgia and surprise. I turned to see her, older but still recognizable, with a softer smile and a few extra lines on her face. She was simply a more seasoned version of the woman I once knew. "Hey, Lily," I greeted her, uncertain of what to expect. "Why are you here?" she asked, curiosity lacing her words. "Just grabbing some things." "And you?" I responded, keeping it casual. "Oh, I work here now," she explained. "But I meant, why are you in town?" "Just wrapping up some loose ends and visiting a few old friends," I answered. "Was I on that list?" she asked, half joking with a flicker of hope in her eyes. "Honestly, no," I replied straightforward. "Oh, okay. Nice to see you, Sam," she said, disappointment creeping into her tone. "You too, Lily," I said, thinking that would be the end of it. Awkward, but manageable. I didn't expect to cross paths with her again, but as I was leaving, I noticed her at the checkout. After she finished, she came over to me again. "Sam, how long are you staying in town?" she asked, her voice softer this time. "Just a few days," I replied, still unsure of where this was going. "Do you think we could catch up? Maybe talk for a bit?" she asked, handing me her card. "I'll think about it," I said, taking the card without any real intention. I walked away without another word. I had moved on, and there wasn't anything more to say. Yet, despite my better judgment, 2 nights later, I found myself sitting in a booth at one of the old bars we used to frequent. This was a place where Lily and I would meet friends after work, but now it felt different. When she arrived, she was dressed up, wearing a black dress that highlighted her curves, with heels and carefully applied makeup. If she had been anyone else, I might have offered to buy her a drink. She looked good, but I didn't stand when she slid into the booth across from me. She waited a moment before speaking. "You lied to me," she said, her voice carrying a note of accusation. "And you lied to me first," I replied, both of us fully aware of what the other meant. She looked embarrassed but continued. "I didn't think you'd actually leave. I thought we'd have a chance to talk it out," she confessed. "What would have been the point?" I asked, genuinely confused. "I don't know, but I wasn't happy when you left," she admitted, her voice softening. "Well, you didn't leave me much of a choice, so I'm not about to feel guilty over it," I responded, my tone blunt. She seemed surprised by my directness, but I wasn't in the mood to sugarcoat anything. "Sam, I never stopped loving you, even after everything that happened," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I sighed, sensing that this was heading into old, painful territory. "Lily, the only good thing about our split was that you didn't lie to me, probably because I didn't give you the chance. But I'm not going to sit here and listen to lies now. What do you want? Why are we even here? Nothing will change what happened. But you never fought for me. You just walked away without even trying. It was so sudden. Why didn't you stay and fight? I thought you cared, she said, her voice cracking. We see things differently. From my perspective, you left me without a word. You cut me off before I even had a chance to fix anything. I just made it official. That was a mistake, Sam. A huge mistake, and I'm sorry. Okay. Lily's voice wavered as she spoke, her eyes pleading for forgiveness. I groaned inwardly. The years apart had given me clarity, but it seemed they had left Lily clinging to her regrets. That's not how it happened. I shot back, refusing to let her twist the past. Her eyes filled with tears, but I knew this was just an attempt to rewrite the narrative. Just because things didn't go her way doesn't mean she gets to change the story. I leaned in closer, my voice steady but sharp. Don't pretend like you care about me now. It's insulting. I do care, Sam. I loved you then, and I still love you now, Lily insisted, her voice thick with emotion. You really believe that? I asked, unable to hide my disbelief. It's the truth, Sam, she said, her gaze unwavering, trying to convince me. All right, let's dig into that, I said, leaning forward. Was it you or Jason Mitchell who decided I should be cut off from intimacy with my so-called devoted wife? She met my eyes briefly, a flicker of shame passing through, but mostly hesitation. It was him, she finally admitted, her voice barely a whisper. So, your endless love for me led you to sleep with another man and do whatever he wanted, knowing full well it would devastate me? I asked, letting the sarcasm drip from my words. Sam, she began, but I didn't let her finish. How long did you wait before ditching the birth control? I demanded. What? I didn't, she stammered, struggling to find her footing. You didn't just accidentally get pregnant, did you? You wanted him to father your child. Were you ever going to tell me the truth? Or just let me believe it was mine? I pressed, watching her squirm under the weight of my questions. She didn't even try to answer. Why aren't you with him now? Where did he go? I asked, shifting the focus. He didn't want me, she confessed, her voice barely audible. His wife found out, and then his boss got wind of it too. He was forced to resign, and his wife divorced him. He left me with nothing. I had to quit my job. It was too humiliating to stay. And I'm supposed to feel sorry for you? Why should I? I asked, my tone like ice. I don't know, Sam, she said, her voice breaking. I made a horrible mistake. I got swept up in something I couldn't control, and I know I hurt you. Can't you forgive me? I've missed you every single day since you left. I've been completely alone, Sam. My parents barely speak to me, my siblings don't want to see me, and I've lost all my friends. I'm all alone. Lily, I forgave you a long time ago, but that doesn't mean there's a way back, I said firmly. You have your child. Let him be your comfort. That's cruel, Sam, she said, her voice tinged with hurt and disappointment. No more cruel than the lies you're spinning now. I shot back, unwilling to soften my stance. I'm not lying, Sam. I want another chance. It's what I've dreamed of for years, she pleaded, desperation clear in her voice. That's never going to happen, I replied, leaving no room for negotiation. Why, Sam? I know you loved me. You always said you would, she reminded me, her voice trembling with desperation. I did love you, and maybe I still do, but that's not enough, I admitted, feeling the weight of the truth. Why not? She asked, her voice shaking. 2 reasons. First, I'm not the same man who married you. I've changed, and you don't know me anymore. And I certainly don't know you. If I ever really did, I explained. You do know me, Sam. I'm still the same woman who loved you. So, what's the second reason? She asked, clinging to any remaining hope. That's the first honest thing you've said tonight, I acknowledged. But here's the second reason. You wanted someone else, and I let you go without a fight because I loved you enough to let you choose your path. Since then, I've gone to law school, passed the bar, built a new career, and a new life. But I haven't been with anyone else since our last night together. So tell me, how many men have you been with while supposedly longing for me? Lily couldn't even meet my gaze. You see, Lily, I used to believe in the woman I loved. But what I didn't see back then was that she was a liar and a cheat. How could I ever trust you again? Why would I even want to? Give me one reason why I should let you back into my life that isn't just about what you want. If you can do that, maybe we'd have a chance. She started to cry quietly as I stood to leave. That's what I thought. Goodbye, Lily. 3 months later, I found myself back in Des Moines on business. Everything was going well, and Jack and Linda were enjoying their new home and retirement. Seeing them so content filled me with a sense of peace. While waiting for my flight, I noticed Claire and Emily, the women from the coffee kiosk, giggling and smiling as they saw me. I was deep into my phone when I heard my name. Mr. Morgan, a voice called out, pulling me from my thoughts. Yes, can I help you? I responded, turning to face them. At first, I didn't recognize the two women, but then it clicked. All right, how did everything turn out? I asked, remembering our last conversation. Everything worked out great, Mr. Morgan, the brunette Claire replied. We wanted to thank you, but we didn't know how. It's Sam, and no thanks are necessary. I'm just glad it worked out for you, I said with a reassuring smile. Claire, with her curly hair and warm smile, spoke up while her cousin Emily, a shy blonde, stood quietly beside her. As my flight was announced, I gathered my things, ready to board. Nice to see you both again, I said, preparing to leave. Just as I was about to step away, Claire hurried over and handed me a napkin with a phone number scribbled on it. We'd really like to thank you properly. Will you call when you're back in town? She asked, her tone hopeful. Caught off guard, I nodded. Sure, no problem, I replied, tucking the napkin into my pocket. On big holidays, my family always gathered: Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, the 4th of July, and even Memorial Day. It was unusual to ask everyone to come together in September, but that's what I did. I was surprised that everyone fit into Jack and Linda's new apartment. The space was cozy, but somehow we managed. They all looked at me, waiting for what I had to say. I knew what I had to say would be one of the hardest things I'd ever done. Maybe some of them would think it wasn't my place to speak up, but it felt right. As Henry always said, I was following my instincts. I wanted everyone here so I could say it once, and they could all hear it together. Being treated as a full member of this family has been one of the greatest joys of my life. Jack and Linda, your love and support helped me through some tough times, and I'll always be grateful for that. But I also remember that Lily was part of this family, too. She shared in the joys and the struggles just like the rest of us. She cheated on me, and I made some hard choices because of that, but she didn't cheat on any of you. A few months ago, I spoke to her for the first time in 10 years. It was a painful conversation. I said some harsh things, but what hurt the most was hearing about how you've treated her. So, with all due respect, I need to say this. You all need to stop being so petty and stop shunning your daughter and sister. She belongs back in this family. And as for me, I continued, feeling the weight of my words. I don't want anything to do with you, Jack and Linda, until you make things right with her. Don't contact me, and I won't contact you until this is over. The shocked expressions on their faces didn't bring me any satisfaction. With those words, I walked away from the people who had been like family to me, unsure if I'd ever see them again. The next year was chaotic, both professionally and personally. At work, we were operating at a breakneck pace that was impossible to sustain. After nearly 8 weeks of grueling 14-hour days and back-to-back deals, Henry finally had enough. One evening in the conference room, he made an announcement. That's it, I'm done. I can't stand the sight of any of you. We're closed. Everyone, get out of here and don't come back for a week. I'll still pay you, but I don't want to see your faces, he said before walking out of the building. On the first day of my mandatory break, I decided to clean my apartment, only to discover the furniture buried under piles of papers, clothes, and takeout containers. As I sorted through my laundry, emptying pockets as I went, I found the napkin with Claire's number scribbled on it. By the third day, with my apartment spotless and my wardrobe organized, that napkin still sat on my dining room table, like some sort of strange centerpiece. Finally, I decided to give her a call. I fumbled with my words as I dialed. Hi, can I speak to Claire, please? This is Claire, she replied, her voice warm and familiar. Oh, hi, Claire. It's Sam Morgan. We met at the airport a while back, and you gave me your number. I reminded her, hoping she remembered. Yes, I remember you, Sam, she said, a smile evident in her tone. Well, I know it's short notice, but would you and Emily like to come over for dinner tonight? I thought I'd cook for you both and catch up on how things went with your apartment. We got kicked out of the office for a week, and I'm bored, I explained, trying to sound casual. She giggled, and I felt a bit embarrassed by my rambling. We'd love to have dinner at your place tonight, Sam, Claire replied enthusiastically. Fantastic. Great. Can I get your address? I asked, realizing I hadn't given her the details yet. I provided my address, feeling a bit flustered but excited. Later, when they arrived, I felt much more comfortable talking to Claire and Emily in person. Emily was still quiet, but she made eye contact and smiled, which was more than enough to put me at ease. This is a great apartment, Sam. Do you host parties here often? Claire asked, looking around appreciatively. My apartment was impressive, mostly because it was part of a project Henry and I had worked on. I had jumped at the chance to buy a 3-bedroom penthouse with a fantastic view, but I didn't mention that I also owned the building. Actually, you're the first visitors I've had besides my boss, I admitted. Really? No girlfriend? Claire asked, surprised. No, I haven't even been on a date since my divorce 10 years ago, I said casually, focusing on the meal I was preparing. Claire and Emily sat at the kitchen island, sipping wine while I cooked. Claire asked me a lot of questions, and I enjoyed the conversation. It was refreshing to talk to someone other than my boss or co-workers. As I continued cooking, I noticed both of them staring at me in shock. Did I say something wrong? I asked, puzzled by their reactions. You haven't been on a date in 10 years, Sam? Claire repeated, clearly astonished. No, I haven't. I've been busy with work and school. Is that weird? I asked, genuinely curious. Yes, Claire said emphatically, and even Emily nodded in agreement. Well, I guess it is kind of weird, I conceded with a shrug. Jesus, Sam, I can't believe it, Claire said, shaking her head in disbelief. It's true. Anyway, dinner's ready. Let's eat, I said, steering the conversation back to the meal. Dinner was lively and fun, filled with laughter and a sense of ease that I hadn't felt in a long time. As the conversation deepened, I learned more about Claire and Emily. Claire was in her final year of studying hospitality management, while Emily was focusing on creative writing as part of her English degree. They were both 22 and had been living together since they were 18, ever since Emily's parents passed away. Claire casually mentioned that Emily had developed a bit of a crush on me and would open up more over time. The atmosphere felt charged, and I couldn't help but wonder if there was more to their friendly banter. I enjoyed their company, even if I was reading too much into it. At the end of the evening, both women gave me a brief hug and a kiss on the cheek before leaving, with Claire suggesting we meet again soon. Half joking, I told them I was free for the rest of the week. To my surprise, they showed up the next day with a picnic basket in hand. We had lunch on the balcony, soaking up the day until the heat drove us back inside. Afterward, they headed off to work, but I was starting to realize they were taking my invitations more seriously than I'd expected. The next evening, they returned with pizza, popcorn, and a movie. We all settled in, me in my favorite chair, them sharing the couch. The day after that, Claire asked if they could use the pool. I told her it was no problem. When they arrived, I handed them the keys to the pool and gym, along with access to a locker. Perks of being the building owner, I suppose. They had a surprise for me, too. When they emerged in their swimsuits, I realized I'd need to step up my own fitness game. After that week, we settled into a rhythm. I'd spend my days at work, and they'd drop by a few evenings a week for dinner, a movie, or just to hang out. On weekends, we'd find activities to do together, and they'd use the gym regularly, even when I wasn't around. Henry loved to tease me about it. If I didn't know you better, Sam, I'd think you were juggling 2 relationships at once, he quipped. Get real, Henry. We're just friends, so save the gossip for someone else, I'd reply, laughing it off. About 4 months into this routine, I sensed something was off during a quiet Friday night dinner at my place. The girls were unusually reserved, and as we wrapped up the meal, the tension in the air became impossible to ignore. Is something wrong, guys? I asked, trying to break the silence. No, not exactly. Emily hesitated, then spoke up. Claire has something she wants to ask you, but we're not sure how to bring it up. Claire, you can ask me anything. I'm an open book with you too. Just ask, and I promise not to get offended, I reassured her. Claire took a deep breath. Why haven't you ever made a move on us? Don't you think we're attractive? I was completely taken aback and needed a moment to gather my thoughts. You're both incredibly attractive, but I haven't made a move for a couple of reasons. First, I don't want to mess up our friendship or make you think I'm just some older guy hanging around for fun. Second, I'm not even sure I know how to make a move. I've never really had the chance to. Claire and Emily exchanged a glance, then Claire continued, Sam, we really enjoy spending time with you, and we both like you a lot. I enjoy spending time with you too, I replied honestly. But Claire, Emily, you'll both find someone special easily. Emily looked like she had something to say, but Claire pushed forward. Sam, we're not looking for two separate special people. We're looking for one, and we think that person might be you. I was stunned. Before I could respond, Claire added, we want you to understand what we're asking. Emily would like you to read some of her writing tonight. We think it'll help you understand what we're looking for. Then we can talk tomorrow about what this means for all of us. Does that sound okay? I think I can do that. You just want me to read her stories? I asked, still trying to process everything. Yes, Sam, and then we'll talk, Claire confirmed. This might give you the wrong impression of me, but I've always held strong beliefs about right and wrong, and I make it a point to treat the people I care about with respect. I believe in letting people live their lives as they choose, as long as no one gets hurt. But I also know when to be tough, especially in business. Henry often joked about my Jekyll and Hyde tendencies, how I'd give people the benefit of the doubt, but wouldn't hesitate to retaliate if crossed. I wasn't always this way. Lily's betrayal changed me, making me fiercely loyal to those I trust and ruthless toward those who betray me. After my divorce, I had no interest in romance. The pain consumed me, and anything that reminded me of Lily was unbearable. I coped by burying myself in work and studies. It took years for the hurt to fade. I missed out on a lot of life experiences because I met the love of my life too young. I'd never asked a girl out, never had a casual fling, and didn't know how to attract someone. Fear of rejection held me back. I was confident in many things, but thanks to Lily, I felt insecure about relationships. A decade passed, and I started to think I'd never get the chance to try something new. With that mindset, I read Emily's stories. They were beautifully written, full of vivid imagery and well-developed characters. I learned a lot about Emily through her writing. The next day, the girls arrived around noon. I was worried that this conversation might ruin our friendship. After getting drinks and snacks, we settled into the living room. Claire got straight to the point. Sam, Emily and I aren't involved with each other romantically or physically, she said, her tone serious. Okay, that's important to know, but honestly, I hadn't fully grasped the depth of their bond until Claire began to speak. Emily smiled gently as Claire continued. We've always looked out for each other. We're not just cousins, we're like sisters. When we first started dating, we talked endlessly about what we liked in guys, what we wanted out of relationships. I've always been drawn to thoughtful, caring men, while Emily has a thing for more assertive, take-charge types. The problem was, the guys she liked were often exciting, but treated her poorly. They exchanged a glance, their hands clasped tightly. Then, our worst fears came true, Claire said, her voice trembling. One of Emily's boyfriends became too aggressive, and a few weeks later, she found out she was pregnant. It was a rough time. The pregnancy didn't go well, and they had to terminate it for her health. Complications arose, and the doctors told Emily she couldn't have children anymore. Tears filled their eyes as Claire continued. We had always imagined our kids playing together. We were only 19, and that dream was taken from us before it could even begin. But I love Emily more than just a cousin, more than a friend. We decided our dream didn't have to die. We would share my children, raise them together as co-mothers. They both looked at me, waiting for my reaction. I was deeply moved by their story, by the love and pain that had brought them to this point. It was one of the most selfless things I'd ever heard. They smiled faintly, but hesitated before continuing. But then we ran into another problem. Finding the right person, Claire explained. The guys I liked were too gentle for Emily, and the ones she liked were too harsh for me. We needed someone special, kind but strong. And then we met you, she added, her voice barely above a whisper. My heart pounded as Claire continued. You helped us without expecting anything in return. It was one of the nicest things anyone had ever done for us. As we got to know you, we realized you might be the one we'd been looking for. We decided to be honest with you, even if it meant risking our friendship. I was stunned, realizing the magnitude of what they were offering. A future, a family, with both of them. This is a lot to process, I finally said. I need some time to think it over. Can we discuss this more over the weekend? Of course, Sam. We understand, Claire replied, and with that, they left quietly. I already knew my answer deep down, but I wanted to give it serious thought before responding. They had opened up to me in a way few people ever had, and I owed them a thoughtful reply. Later that afternoon, I ran a few errands and then returned to my apartment. I sent a text to Emily before calling Claire. "Hello," Claire answered, her voice soft and familiar. "Hi, Claire. It's Sam. I was wondering if you'd like to join me for dinner tonight," I asked, trying to keep my tone steady. In the background, I could hear Emily's phone ring, followed by her surprised gasp. "Sam, I'd love to have dinner tonight," Claire replied warmly. "Great. I'll pick you up at 7, I said, feeling a growing sense of anticipation. After hanging up, I waited for Emily's response. The message I'd sent her was more daring. "Be at my place at 6:15. Don't be late. You're staying the night." Her reply came quickly, perfect. When I arrived to pick up Claire, I was momentarily speechless. She looked stunning in a simple yet elegant black dress. I handed her a bouquet of white roses. "Wow, you look incredible," I said, genuinely impressed. "Thank you, Sam, for the flowers and the compliment," she replied with a warm smile. Our evening was magical. We shared wine and sushi at an intimate restaurant she loved, then moved on to a cozy lounge for drinks. We talked about everything: our dreams, our plans for the future, thoughts on family. By the end of the night, I felt a deep connection growing between us. As we walked through a quiet park, hand in hand, a lingering doubt gnawed at me. "What's on your mind, Sam?" Claire asked, sensing my unease. "Why me, Claire? I'm older, divorced, and honestly, you turned heads all night. You could have anyone," I confessed, my insecurities slipping through. "Sam, you'll figure it out soon enough. But for now, can you just accept that you're the one? There's no one else I'd rather be with," she reassured me. "Yes, I can live with that. Thank you for a wonderful evening, Claire," I said, feeling more at ease. "No, Sam, thank you," she replied, giving my hand a gentle squeeze. On Easter Sunday, I found myself back in the church where I'd once been a regular. I had converted to Catholicism to marry Lily and was active in the church during our marriage, but it felt strange to be back now. I'd been sitting alone for about 15 minutes when someone quietly sat down next to me. "This seems like the right place for a confession." "Forgive me, Sam, for I have sinned," Lily said, breaking the silence. "Lily, I forgave you a long time ago," I replied, turning to face her. "I know, Sam, but you forgave me when I didn't deserve it, when I wasn't even sorry. Now I understand the pain I caused you. I wish I could take it all back. I always thought you deserved someone better. I'm so sorry I couldn't be the woman you needed. Thank you for giving me back my family. My dad told me it was because of you." "Thank you, Lily. I appreciate your apology. You're always welcome here," I said sincerely. The rest of the Mass was peaceful, and Easter brunch was pleasant enough, but as the day wore on, I realized that my place in the Parker family had shifted. It was time for me to move forward. When it came time to leave, the goodbyes were tearful. Linda Parker hugged me tightly at the door, her eyes full of understanding. She placed a hand on my cheek, closed her eyes for a brief moment, and then whispered, "God bless you, Sam." Leaving Omaha behind for good, I realized how much I would miss this chapter of my life, but I was also eager for what lay ahead. My personal life had become far from conventional. For months, Claire, Emily, and I had settled into a unique rhythm, spending most of our time together as an inseparable trio. If they had lived with me full-time, we probably wouldn't have spent much more time together than we already did. I was genuinely happy dating Claire, even though our relationship hadn't moved beyond kissing. She believed we'd both know when the time was right, and I agreed with her. What struck me as the most unusual part was how comfortable Claire was in making me feel tense, only to send me to Emily for comfort. Emily, for her part, seemed to thrive under this arrangement. Claire had confided in me, that Emily thought I was perfect from the very beginning. Emily needed someone to guide her, someone who made her feel secure and cared for, and gradually, I found myself stepping into that role, taking over from Claire. The real turning point came with the flowers. It wasn't something I had planned carefully. It just felt right. I'd given Claire flowers on our first date and at random moments because it was romantic. Emily's flowers, however, were a special thank you, delivered separately due to circumstances. My first date with Claire was wonderful, but as I prepared to return to Emily, I worried whether I could meet her needs. I needn't have worried. Over the next few months, I thought a lot about how to win Emily over, but that first night, everything just fell into place. When Emily walked in with the biggest smile, holding her flowers, I knew I had done the right thing. As I left Omaha for the last time, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. I had survived Lily's betrayal, built a new life, and forged a successful career, but something was still missing: true happiness. On my way home, I made a stop, bought 2 special items, and quickly returned. When I got back, Claire and Emily were thrilled to see me, and we shared a light, joyful dinner together. I hope to make our lives even better. After dinner, as they tidied up in the kitchen, I watched them working together, their joy stemming simply from being together. "I think I know why we haven't made love yet," I said suddenly. Emily turned to look at me, while Claire kept her eyes on the sink. "When we make love for the first time, it won't just be about passion. It'll be about creating something together, something that binds us all. We'll be sharing a piece of ourselves for a common purpose. That's why we'll be together. But there's an even more important reason. You'll be giving Emily and me something we can't create on our own, a child." Emily smiled through her tears. "I think you've been waiting for me to realize this, and you've waited long enough," I continued, kneeling down and pulling out a small box. Emily's face lit up with excitement as I opened it. Claire slowly turned, tears in her eyes. "Claire, will you marry me?" I asked, my voice steady. "Yes, Sam, I will," she replied, her voice full of emotion. "I'll love you forever and give you everything I have." Claire and Emily hugged first, showing how deeply connected they were and how much we all needed each other. I slipped the ring onto Claire's finger, and Emily admired it. "That's a beautiful ring, Sam," Emily said softly. "You're not left out, Emily. You're a vital part of our lives," I said, pulling out a second box containing an ankle bracelet with a diamond set and a Celtic knot, accompanied by 3 birthstones: ruby, sapphire, and amethyst. "Emily, we love you and need you. Please, don't ever leave us." Claire was crying, but Emily remained calm as I fastened the bracelet around her ankle. "I'm home, Sam. I'm not going anywhere," Emily said, her voice filled with certainty. We were married 3 months later in a small, intimate ceremony. Emily stood beside Claire, and Henry was next to me as my best man. 6 months after the wedding, our first child, Aiden James, was born. Twins Sophia Claire and Stephen Michael followed, and then baby Olivia Rose. The boys were little versions of me, while Sophia was a miniature Claire and Olivia was practically a clone of Emily. Their bond with each other was instant and unbreakable. Were Claire and I jealous that Olivia treated Emily like her primary parent while we were more like a beloved aunt and uncle? Not at all. Claire and I lived as husband and wife, but Emily was always close, integrated into every aspect of our lives. My journey to happiness had been a long one, but I had finally found my place again. Our life together was as perfect as any relationship could be. I loved Claire, Emily, and our children. Claire loved me, Emily, and our kids. Emily loved Claire, needed me, and poured her heart into raising our children. We've never shared our unique lifestyle publicly, and only our closest friends know the full truth. But the truth is, we live a very happy and fulfilling life together.